Now is one of the two Republicans on the January 6th committee, Congressman Adam Kinzinger. Sir, thank you so much for being with us this morning. And I do want to start with this news that we've heard about Marc Short, that he's testified in the DOJ's probe. What does that signal to you about where the investigation stands?
Well, I mean, I look at it and it says, obviously, there's some interest. You know, there was a lot of frustration just kind of personally for the last, I guess, year and a half, like what's DOJ doing? I think our investigation, though it is not a criminal investigation, certainly has brought some things to light that DOJ is watching. And it seems like between that and some of the search warrants that have been served and some of the other things we've seen, that they are moving forward. Look, I think it is important for the Department of Justice to get a handle on what the criminality of what happened is, and if there are crimes, to prosecute them. Because we cannot live in a country where we send a message that a president is above the law as long as he fails at a coup attempt. But by the way, if he ever succeeds at a coup attempt, then there's probably no law anyway. This is important for us as a country to put out that standard.
Has the committee provided DOJ with transcripts of its interviews with Marc Short and also with Greg Jacob, the legal counsel, former legal counsel to the former VP?
Yeah, I won't get into kind of the behind the scenes, what we aren't sharing, what DOJ has asked for. As we've mentioned, we are cooperating with the Department of Justice in certain areas. There's a lot coming into consideration. We have I'd say a decent working relationship with them, but obviously we have two different interests. Ours is to get to the bottom of what happened, put out recommendations. The Department of Justice is to look at any possible criminality. I just have to ask, what have they been doing for the last year and a half? That said, if they are moving forward on looking at this stuff, I think that's very positive for the country, even if in the short term it may be hard.
When you think of Short's testimony with the committee, what part do you think would be most relevant to DOJ?
I think there's just a lot of, what did he know? What was the vice president's mindset? What did he see, within the White House? In terms of what the DOJ is specifically looking at, I don't know. Because, again, I don't know if is it specifically this electors issue? Is it specifically what is the president's role? I don't know. That's not something I frankly need to know with what the DOJ is doing. But I can tell you, Marc Short, he's a good man. He certainly knows a lot of what happened. And I think under oath, you can be pretty much committed that he'll tell the truth.
Ginni Thomas was pressuring a number of officials to overturn election results. She was in touch with many major players. Liz Cheney says the committee's contemplating subpoenaing her. When will the committee move beyond thinking about it?
So that's a discussion right now between Ginni Thomas's lawyers, our lawyers. We've been doing this now as a committee for about a year. Our lawyers are very good at knowing when we've gone from legitimate negotiations which occur between somebody who wants to come in and testify or who should come in and testify and a committee. They know when it goes from that legitimate negotiation to stall tactics. And that's usually when they kind of give us a signal this is going nowhere, they're trying to buy time, and we may move to a subpoena. I think it's important. Look, we're not interested in talking to Ginni Thomas because of her last name. We're interested because what started out as, maybe a few conversations with some people seems to have grown. This has been publicly reported. And so we want to hear from her. And she said, I think on, I forget which kind of public news outlet, that she's very excited, in essence, to come in and talk to the committee. So, yeah, we're eager to talk to her and just find out what she knows.
Do you think her lawyers are stalling?
I don't know. I mean, I'm not in on those negotiations. We look at it and say, okay, the lawyers that know the lawyerly stuff that I don't, for instance, they are the better experts at that. But look, we're interested in finding out what she knows. If we have to go to subpoena, we will. But clearly, we'd much rather just talk to her voluntarily.
Would you have subpoenaed her already if she wasn't married to Clarence Thomas?
No, like I said, I don't think she's getting special treatment one way or the other. We treat her like we would anybody else. I think it's probably the media and public that have more of an interest in her based on the last name. But we look and say, as information is developed and we see who she's talked to, that's when we make the decision, okay, it's good to come in and chat with us.
So Marc Short says he didn't see any of Pence's Secret Service agents in fear of their lives on January 6th. He said the more likely scenario was that if the rioters had gotten closer to the vice president, the Secret Service would have opened fire on them, meaning he's saying it would have been more likely that the rioters were killed than the Secret Service was. Why should people then believe that anonymous White House security official or security official who is familiar with the White House complex, whose testimony we heard last week, over Short, who was actually there?
I mean, look, that official said it under oath. I mean, Short can have a different perception of what happened. Let me ask you a question, though. I mean, here's something clear. If his reasoning for saying that is because Secret Service agents can open fire and kill people coming after the vice president.
Well, I think he just said he didn't witness it. That's not what he witnessed. And he was there with them.
That's fine. I mean, that's fine. There's multiple roles of Secret Service. The point is, we heard the radio traffic. They were very concerned. Very rarely do you hear Secret Service in a heightened state saying, hey, we're about to have our exit cut off. And I want to put yourself in the mindset of whether it's Secret Service, the vice president, or anybody with him. They were 40 feet, which is like 10 football yards, maybe slightly more, 13 football yards, from being completely cut off of any exit to the Capitol. There's no secret trap door in the Capitol that the vice president can go through and end up in some protected location. They were stuck. I would be in pretty freaked out mode if I was protecting the vice president, because you know at that point, if the rioters, of which there are thousands, come upon him, they are not going to treat him gingerly. They had gallows erected outside.
Did the Inspector General of DHS inform the January 6th committee that the inquiry into the missing texts from Secret Service is now a criminal probe? Is that going to impact the information you may get?
I don't know what I want to get into too much with what we've talked about with the Inspector General. Here's what we know as a committee. Obviously, there are missing text messages. It's one of two things: either complete failure and incompetence of management to lose text messages, particularly when there are rules governing that, or there's a reason they're disappeared. That's what we want to know. Uniquely, I mean, on probably the second most important day of the Secret Service in the 21st century, why those text messages? I'm not going out on a limb and saying nefarious activity, but I'm saying suspicious enough that we need to know. The IG has their investigation. We have our investigation. We can get information from each other to the extent that it's feasible, but we all have different interests. Ours is to get the answers for what happened on January 6th.
Has the committee shared information? Has the committee been in contact with the Fulton County DA in Georgia?
Again, I won't get into what's been happening kind of behind the scenes on that. I'll leave that to those that have had the discussion, particularly to any Fulton County DA, what they want to share or not share, but I'm not going to reveal any of that.
Other than the tweet that Trump put out urging supporters to come to Washington, sort of a siren call, and I think that it's reasonable to look at it that way. But other than that, is there any direct link from the Trump White House to the extremist groups in the lead up to January 6th?
Look, in terms of any direct links, we're going to put out more information. We'll have more hearings. My issue is this, and this is what we were talking about in the Thursday night hearing. The president tried every effort to overturn the election in the lead up to January 6th. On January 6th, the president did far more than just failed to act. He chose to stand by, for the first time in his life, actually resist peer pressure, to see where this attack on the Capitol would go, because maybe it would succeed. And only when it didn't did he step out. So he had that tweet, obviously, come there, it's going to be wild, all the stuff about the election leading up to it, stirring people up. And then in the middle of knowing that his vice president was in the middle of here, that the Capitol was occupied, he sat there angry and said, Vice President Mike Pence betrayed us, knowing dang well that he was in danger. And then at the end of the day, I think it was his last tweet ever, mercifully, he said, these are the things and events that happen when an election is stolen from people like you. Remember this day forever. He's making the day a martyr. He's making his cause a martyr. And it is absolutely chilling. It's the things you see in places like Libya and countries that have dictatorships or had dictatorships.
Is that the direct link to you?
No, look, I'm just saying from my perspective, the president knew exactly what he was doing. In terms of specifics with extremist groups, we put out some information. There's more to come. I'm talking about the president's role in January 6th. That's what matters to me.
Okay, so there's more to come. You have hearings coming up. And would you look, so more to come. I mean, when you have these hearings still ahead of you, would you think of this more as tying up loose ends, or are we going to see some bombshells?
Well, let me give you an example. So you saw the video that came out yesterday about the speech, the drafting of the speech. We could have had a hearing on Thursday that was 5 hours long with the information we had. Obviously, you guys wouldn't cover a 5-hour hearing. Maybe you guys would. Most people wouldn't cover a 5-hour hearing. And so there's a lot of information we couldn't get out. That will come out. That'll come out particularly in the report. It may come out in future hearings. And we're also getting more witnesses. So as we're also kind of presenting this to the American people, we're not tying up loose ends. We're getting more information, and we're going to be in a position where people have no doubt what happened. That's all our job is to say, here's what happened. Here's recommendations. In terms of the justice side of things, you have to ask Merrick Garland on that one.
Yeah, we might cover that 5-hour hearing, too. So just give us a heads up on that.
You bet, we'll do.
Steve Bannon, guilty now of contempt. Do you think DOJ should have charged Meadows and Dan Scavino as well?
Yeah. I mean, look, the only question is, did you get a subpoena from Congress? Were they able to serve that to you? And did you show up? Any one of those people can show up to Congress and assert their Fifth Amendment right. They can show up and claim executive privilege to Congress. They didn't even bother. So, yes, I think the Department of Justice should. I think they're worried about this area of executive privilege. But again, Mark Meadows can come in and claim it, as, for instance, the White House counsel did, Mr. Cipollone, in certain areas. Come in and claim it. Claim the Fifth if you think you're guilty. But you don't have a right to just ignore it like you couldn't with the court that subpoenaed you.
Your Republican colleague over in the Senate, Senator Tom Cotton, went on a radio show. He criticized the last hearing, but then admitted this. Let's listen.
I'll confess, though, I will confess that I did not watch that hearing, and I have not watched any of the hearings, so I have not seen any of them out of the context that I see a snippet here or there on the news.
Your response to him?
Yeah, let me tell you how he's thinking. He thinks it's cool to be in front of the base and be like, I'm not even watching the hearing, guys. I'm too cool to watch the hearings, but I already have my mind made up. Frankly, that probably works in the base. Tom Cotton has built a reputation on acting like the toughest guy on the planet, but he can't even put in front of his eyes, a narrative which may challenge his soul that he will have to go tell his people the truth. Republicans that are watching, let me tell you this. Every one of your leaders that refused to tell you that the election wasn't stolen, Joe Biden is the legitimate president, and that Trump is a poison to our country, anyone that refuses to tell you, that doesn't believe it, which is 99% of them, they're abusing you, they are lying to you. And you should throw them out with anger, because you need leaders that tell you the truth. You can be ticked at me, be ticked at Liz Cheney, all you want, fine. We can take it. We're telling you the truth. The people that are lying to you, they may pat you on the head and make you feel good, but they're abusing you, stealing your money, all to stay in power. I have no sympathy for people like Tom Cotton or anybody else like Kevin McCarthy that lies to the base voter.
Those base voters that you're talking about, they're not changing their minds looking at the hearings. In fact, our Donnie O'Sullivan went to the dueling Trump-Pence rallies in Arizona, and this is what some told him about the hearings. Let's listen.
Have you watched the January 6th hearings?
I have.
What do you think?
I think they're a bunch of bullshit.
Why?
Well, because do you have both sides, or are you getting one side of the story?
You mean like the side that attacked the Capitol?
You really believe that happened?
I was there.
Okay. I have a lot of people that were there, too.
And
saw things that it wasn't what they say it was.
Have you guys been watching the January 6th hearings at all?
No.
No?
No, we saw it when it all went down, and then we saw like a lot of the BLM and the Antifa people in the building as well, and it's just nonsense.
But I think like 800 people now have been charged, right?
Yeah.
None of them are Black Lives Matter or Antifa.
Yeah,
they're not charging them correctly. They have not been brought into court for their due process because they have not been arrested.
Hunter Biden hasn't been arrested.
Yeah, I mean, your face says it all. These aren't outliers, right, in the Trump base. What's your thought as you're listening to that?
I mean, facts are hard to digest, right? This is a very one-sided hearing process. It's very one-sided. I'll give them that. It has only been Republicans, mainly Republicans appointed by Donald Trump, that have testified. We haven't had a Democratic witness, maybe one or two. I don't know what their personal political affiliations, but it is only Republicans coming in and testifying. They are being lied to and manipulated. They are told that somehow Nancy Pelosi or Muriel Bowser controls the National Guard. The only person with control of the D.C. National Guard, by the way, is the President of the United States. The only person that can deploy the D.C. National Guard. But they are lied to. I could go on for an hour about this. I will tell you, though, I firmly believe in 5 or 10 years, you will not find a single person in this country that will admit to ever having supported Donald Trump. He's becoming a cancer. Trumpism is a cancer. And there will be people like Nixon that never admit they supported him in 5 or 10 years.
I do want to ask you about something that we're seeing, which is Democratic groups who are actually helping push election deniers in GOP primaries. They're hoping for an easier matchup in the general election. What do you make of that as someone whose committee is exposing them?
I think it's disgusting because, look, yeah, you think you may have an easier time at winning. I'm going to tell you, after January, there are going to be a few of these people. Look at Doug Mastriano in Pennsylvania. I mean, look at Darren Bailey in Illinois, an election denier. Governor Pritzker spent tens of millions of dollars so that he would win. By the way, yeah, Pritzker has a little bit of an advantage right now. In a good Republican year, Bailey may win. And you see this in Peter Meyer in Michigan. You're going to have election deniers win. So while I think a certain number of Democrats truly understand that democracy is threatened, don't come to me after having spent money supporting an election denier in a primary and then come to me and say, where are all the good Republicans? You're worried about democracy. I truly believe that all these issues we argue about, they matter. But the thing that matters the most right now is the threat to our democracy. It's the thing our kids will judge us by. And when we're sitting here playing DCCC, DNC politics, let's promote the crazy, and then that person wins, you don't understand the real threat. I'm sorry, you don't understand the threat to democracy.
Congressman, we do appreciate you being so generous with your time this morning. Thank you, Congressman Adam Kinzinger.